wanted to start at the very beginning, and if you could tell us when you were born and where.
I was born. I was born in Ethiopia, and when I was 3 months old, my family, my father and mother, and my oldest brother moved to Israel. And since then, I am Israeli. I call myself Israeli because 3 months, it's nothing. So I grew up in Tel Aviv, and I started my career in Israel, in Tel Aviv, in all over Tel Aviv, all over the country. At that time, we were very, very small country, you know. So I went to school, and then the age of 10, you want it short or you want it, you know, because there is a process. At the age of 10, I was developing my ability to sing when I was already, I think, about 5 years old, when I was in the kindergarten, that I sang solo, and always gave me the leading part to sing. And I was only 5 years old, but I had a lot of chutzpah probably at that time, and I was singing with all my might. And at the age of 10, I've been discovered actually by a mother of my friend at school, that she was involved in the music industry, and she wanted me to go to see a composer by the name of Nahum Nardi. At that time, he was the composer, and of course, I went there with my mother because I was very underage. I couldn't move without my mother, especially at that time. And from my family, because they are not Orthodox, but they keep tradition, and they didn't want me to go by myself. I went there, and he gave me some exercise vocally and told me to sing song that I knew at that time, you know, just blah, blah, blah songs. And he said that he wanted to work with me. And he's very interested in teaching me, not singing, but songs, because he was not a coach of developing your voice, so forth and so on. But he was a composer, one of the top composers in Israel, and I learned with him songs, and later on I recorded it. I was in the radio, at that time was not television. The radio, Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, and concerts. I gave recitals of almost 2 hours. By the age of, it was already 11, you know, it took time to develop and to sing and to see. And I started visiting and touring the country, you know, Jerusalem and kibbutzim, and those places. And they called me the Wunderkind, which means a child protege or whatever at that time. And later on, I worked with him like until the age of 15. By that time, I met quite a few composers, and at the age of 16 about, yes, approached to my mother, an impresario and director of a theater, satire theater, Lilalo. His name is Moshe Valin, and told my mother that he is very interested in me being part of the theater, And so my mother said to him, you know what, I'd like to see a show. I mean, to go to see what kind of, because Lila Lo at that time, there was a lot of dancers, uh, not proper, let's say, for 16 years old. And she saw the program. It was satire about all kind of things about what happening in Israel politically and what's going on there. And she, in the beginning, didn't want her to go there. She said she's too young to be involved in a Lila Lo theater because most of them was older people, and it's gathered to, all kind of dancers and talking, all kind of talk that she is not excited that I will hear them. And then he said, you look, our policy now that we are going to change. We're going to do certain things that it's not done before. It will be more like what's happening in Israel on the better standard. And people that will write to her will be the top of the Israelis composer or writer, which is Nathan Alterman, Orland, Wilensky, and I think most of them, they were a group that dedicated to Lila Lo and wrote everything for Lila Lo. And so I start Lila Lo. And they wrote me two beautiful songs that it's very, very big. Until today, one of them it's Ani Zachariah Ben Ezra. It's about the Yemenite, about Ben Gurion. It was a satire kind of song. And then a song about Zohara, a young girl that lost her boyfriend in the stones of Jerusalem. It's a very sad song, and it was a very sad period. And after Lila Lo, it's not after Lila Lo, continuing to do many, many shows in Lila Lo. The age of 18, I went to the army. I was a sergeant.
Can I ask you a question before we
Even
get to the army?
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about, going back to your parents, could you tell me a bit about the ethnicity of your parents? Were they both, what's their background in both of your parents?
My father from Aden, my mother Yemenite, which is, it's the same thing, but they said that the people from Aden are a little bit more educated because they went to school. It was under the British mandate. And the Yemen was under the Arab, the Muslim or whatever, so they didn't have this kind of education. But my background was, period, Yemenite, that's what I said. We were, and still, a traditional family. We are 8 children, 4 brothers, 4 sisters, and my mother was seamstress. As a matter of fact, all my gowns at that time she sewed, and she was with me during all my career. And if you want to ask me more questions, so I will be more.
Was it a musical?
Can I correct something? You edit it anyhow, right? You want to edit?
Sure.
No, because she always making this mistake. She says she born in Ethiopia. It really was Eritrea, then became Ethiopia. I just want you to know so.
Yes.
What did your father do?
My father was, he used to have actually, in the Shoka Carmel. You know what is Shoka Carmel? It's the market, the very famous market in Israel. If you go to Israel, this is the first thing you will see. he had, what do you call it, a wagon of vegetables, fruit and vegetable, and he was, merchant, what do you call it, merchant. And later on, he was working at the city hall, but years later. But when he came to Israel, that's what he did.
And what do you remember as a child? Could you describe for us what your neighborhood was like in Israel? I mean, what did it look like? What did it feel like?
Well, it was, as far as I remember, it's a small surrounding where I live. It's a building. It was actually a building with a huge, what do you call it, like section. You're talking about many, many, many years ago. We used to live in one room, 10 people. So we had a huge room, and the next room was another neighbor, and the next room was another neighbor with children. So we were like a small kibbutz. But let's say it's not exactly small kibbutz, because we're here Yemenite. The neighbor was from Lebanon, Jewish from Lebanon. So we have international Jewish community. I never felt anything that I'm missing, although at that time, at that time I was like 10 years old when I'm talking about 9, 7, 10, 11 years old. So we didn't have the toys that today 2 years old have. We have nada, nothing. But we had each other and we didn't miss it. That's the really unbelievable things. Sometimes you grow up and you say, oh, why didn't I have this? I didn't have this. I don't. I had surrounded with love, affection, and everything. We played with brothers, sisters, neighbors. That's what we have, probably instead of toys, and I don't miss it a bit. I see what my daughter had and my grandchildren had. I mean, they have a store of toys. But we had happiness. I really did.
What city were you in?
Tel Aviv.
And would you say the Yemeni community were well received in Israel?
Oh, yes. At that time, of course. At that time, I didn't see anything. I didn't see any wrong things. I was a little girl, naive. I'm still a little bit naive today. At that time, I was really, we didn't think about those kind of things. If they will receive us nice or not, we didn't have this kind.
Can I ask you to sing the song about Zcharia?
To sing?
A little bit.
אני זכריה בן עזרא ולחמי לחמניה וגר אני במעברה אצל הכביש לנתניה ימי פילל ימי מילל שיזכרני הגואל אם יתחשק למה שהבטיח until here. My grandfather was a rabbi, and he also was singing. And my father didn't sing. My mother was a very good listener, and she loved music, and she loved the way I loved the chazonish, the cantorial song. Because of my mother, every Friday she used to hear the program of Kusevitsky in the radio, and she's Yemenite, but she had something to do, the feeling, she loved the song, she loved the spirit, the gospel, and all kind of that. They have a lot of neshama, that is a neshama, and I developed the liking of the cantorial, and I studied that, and I use even one of the cantorial in Las Vegas in one of my acts. And that was really something.
Which song do you remember?
שיבוני בית המקדש ומהרה בימינו. It's very known for Jewish community. They know this cantor. It's oldish.
And did you listen to a lot of popular music also?
Oh yes.
Yeah?
Of course.
Mostly Israeli or international?
No, international.
Okay.
My concert was international, many languages. I love pop music. I love Spanish. All my life, I felt the spirit of the Spanish music because it's a lot of familiarity of the cantorial, of the chazunish, of the cry, of the chotas. It's something that I always liked, and big part of my program was Spanish. And if you will read my biography, to see that I was traveling a lot of Latin America, and I had my own shows of those countries. So.
Where did that come from? Did you hear Spanish music at a young age? When were you exposed to it?
You know that I don't know. Probably I heard it in the radio, and I just liked it. And it was, you know, I now believe when you're born, you're aiming something in you, that you develop things that you don't know that it's in you. And when I heard the cantorial and when I heard the Spanish, something that revived me, and I felt like I want to do it. I would like to sing it. I like to study it, and that's what I did. I went even to Spain, and I met one of the greatest composer there, the one that wrote Tani Tani, and he was fascinated about me being from Israel, and we exchanged like songs, and he showed me that the jotas in Spanish and the cantorial have a lot in common, because they have the cry, the chazonish, they have the same thing. And I had a great experience with this composer. But there is so many things that involve in my career, in my traveling, in my life, that I don't think it will be 1 hour enough to tell you, unless you will ask me specific things and I will tell you.
So you mentioned that you had been singing as a child, and you had been singing through the theater, and then eventually as a teenager, and we cut you off, but you got to the military.
Yes.
And could you tell us about, maybe could you first explain what is the relationship between music and the military in Israel, because it's quite different from anything we have here in the States.
Can you repeat the question, because I don't understand it? What is the difference?
Well, why don't you tell us your experience as a teenager with the military?
Well, I was in a group, and the entertainment group, that we went through all the camps in Israel, singing, entertaining the group. The experience was unbelievable. I had very sad, tragic moment, and I have very happy moment. Seeing the soldiers singing with me and being happy at that moment gave me a lot of lift. At the same time, when I went every year after the army, every year when something happened in the war, and I flew specially, and I saw what's going on there, and I saw when we travel what's happening in the fields, I was crying. I sang my heart to give them courage. That was like, I felt like my duty But it was a moment that I couldn't hold when I saw young 18, 19, 20 years old boys without without hands, blind, cannot move. It's something that if I'm talking today, I cannot hold it. And it's many, many years ago. But it's in me all the time. I travel with it. When something happened, I see it, and it doesn't move from me. And it was a very hard experience.
And roughly what year was that trip?
Well, I finished the army when I was, you don't want to know, 58. But since then, I'm every year in Israel, something happened. I'm talking about the experience after that. But while I was in the army, I was part of it. But after the army, when I was traveling the world, I was in Brazil, and I canceled shows to come to Israel because it was a war. And I had to be there with my people. I felt that I belonged there. And that's what.
So how important would you say is, I mean, obviously the role of, being in the military and growing as an artist,
Right.
connected to that experience, is fairly singular. And I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about how important, how formative those years were for you and what it meant to be an artist or what it meant to be a singer.
When you start very young, it's part of your life. Sometimes they used to tell me, aren't you tired to take this, to travel from here to here and from country to country, or even from Israel, from Jerusalem at that time, to go to Jerusalem, it was a big schlep, talking about like 60 years ago, something like this. But when you grow to the business and you travel when you are very, very young, it's part of you. You don't feel like you have to pack the suitcase or unpack or get dressed. It's part of you. Rehearsal, interviews, traveling. So I didn't know what is the difference. That's me. I loved it. That's all my life until like about 15 years ago that I said, that's it. I couldn't take it anymore.
And how old were you when you recorded your first album or your first song?
I can say more or less, because memories. About 10 years old. Children's song. Yes. I recorded children's song.
And then following that,
Children's song, and then
young
folk
adult.
songs
Okay.
with Emmanuel Zamir, that he was the top folk singers. That all the dancing that the Israeli dancers, the folk dancers dance. It's most of it, a lot of his music. He died when he was very, 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 very young, and I was his first singer that brought the songs and sang the songs for the group of the dancers.
Could you give us a sense of what the Israeli popular music scene was like as a young adult for you when you started recording, I guess, beyond the folk music albums and started maybe mixing in different types of singing styles?
I mixed different kind of songs only when I went abroad. And that's after the army, when I went to Paris, and so I studied the Spanish or French songs. But while I was in Israel, I sang only Israeli songs, folk songs, children's songs, Yiddish, But just when I left to travel, then I took a lot of studying and developed more every year, more songs, more things that I should know for the different countries.
Was that by choice, or was it that, I mean, in Israel, was there pressure to record certain kinds of songs or certain kinds of styles, or were those the songs you wanted to sing?
I was involved with composers. When I was in Idelsohn, I recorded the songs that was written for me for the theater, for Idelsohn. When I was at Doremi Theater, they wrote for me one of the songs that brought me actually to America, Shchora אני ונאווה, I am black and beautiful from Song of Song, and it's 4 octave. That's, that gave me the whole things all over the world. So I recorded it in Israel. Now the songs of Nahum Nardi, I work with him, so I work his part of the song. So each composer wanted me to record it, and that's what I did. So of course I choose things that I prepare from the collections, but it's up to me to decide whatever I like. But I'm working with the different composers.
And what year did you leave Israel for Paris?
It was, I think, 59. Actually, just after the army.
And that was, did you go to live in Paris, or were you there?
No, I was for engagement for a few months, came back to Israel, went back to Paris, and then from Paris I was invited to Ed Sullivan, and then they started the whole Megillah.
What was Paris like for you as a very young Israeli woman leaving Israel and ending up in Paris as a singer? What was that like?
I am ashamed to tell you, at that time, since we didn't have any television, it's only something that you imagine Paris. For me, it's nothing. I didn't know what it is, Paris, because I never saw Paris. I heard about Paris from the radio, but you're talking about so many years ago that we were so naive. I was, for example, so naive that I went to Paris and it was great. I sang with Gilbert Bécaud, Jacques Brel, Fernando, all the big stars. At that time, I didn't understand. I knew that I was, they call me vedette in Paris. Vedette is star-like. And it just, later on, when a year later, I start realizing what happened to me. That Paris is the world, Paris is beautiful, Paris is before coming to America, of course. Then America was the greatest. So for me, Paris was fantastic, but it was like a dreamland, dream that I didn't see, and I was surprised. And I was there. I was in Deauville, Trouville, all those big casinos. But I didn't gamble. I didn't know what it's about gambling. That's part of the naivety, which is good, because now I know what it is.
And you were still singing mostly in Hebrew in Paris, or were you also singing in French?
No, I sang in French, and I sang in Spanish, and of course I sang in Hebrew, and then, each time I learn more, added actually more to my repertoire. And today it's my repertoire from here to eternity, but I don't sing.
And so from Paris you went back to Israel first?
Yeah, I always went back and forth, from Paris. Then when I moved to America, I went also because unfortunately we always had wars in Israel, and I always had to fly to be part of my duty. That's my feeling. So, and I went there also to appear, you know, after traveling in America and South America. Uh, they wanted to welcome me, the agents in Israel. So I went to Israel, I did concerts, and back to America, to Mexico, to Argentina, to Brazil, Venezuela, all those places. And Las Vegas, of course, many times, many times.
And when were you first on the Ed Sullivan Show?
What year? I think it was, I have to ask my manager because he knows years. But I think it's 59, probably 59.
And do you remember what song? You sang one song or multiple songs?
I was twice in his shows, or 3 times. One of them I sang "Kacha Merakdim B'Yisrael." This is the way we dance in Israel. It's also a song with a lot of rhythm and vocalizing. And the second show was "I Am Black and Beautiful." That's also the 4-octave range.
How did Ed Sullivan Show find you originally?
Because I think he found me, one of his people traveling in Israel, and he heard about probably my name, Hanna Ahroni, that was in Paris and did a concert, so they came to see me in Israel, and that's the way he engaged me.
I Am Black and I Am Beautiful. Is that a political song?
No. It's from Song of Songs. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon,
So
said,
there's
"I am
no
black and beautiful." Excuse me?
There's no political damage.
Oh no, of course not. Not. I'm not a politician. I sing.
How important was the Ed Sullivan Show for your career?
I think at that time he was the god in the show business, and it gave me a lot of open doors. And at that time, I went to, after Ed Sullivan, I went back to Israel, and I got a phone call from a manager that lived, he was at that time managing artists in Los Angeles, that he wanted to engage me for some concert tour. And I said, okay. We had a contract, and I came to Los Angeles, and this manager, he's my husband today. I mean, at that time he was my manager. He managed me, and he started working with me, concerts and doing all kind of shows, television, traveling the world. Actually, was with me all over the world. And it's not funny. My cousin, the way we met was that my cousin was a leading dancer in a group that my manager, Charles Tishman, which is my husband today, was a manager in Los Angeles, and he engaged this group of dancers to a film that was made at that time. It was it's a big movie that was a story that never been told, or maybe my manager will correct me later on. It was a very big movie, and they were part of the movie. And when he met the group, and they knew that he is Israeli, so my cousin approached him and he said to him, are you interested to bring a star from Israel? He said, tell me what you are talking about? He said, Hanna Ahroni. I said, Hanna Ahroni? This is your family? He said, yes, she's my cousin. He said, yes, of course. And that's the start, the engagement and the contract and the concert. And from there on, I was in his hands.
Did you get, once you got to Los Angeles, did you get involved with the local Los Angeles music scene at all? Did you collaborate with musicians in LA?
Oh yes,
Yeah?
yes, of course, because I met H.B. Barnum, that he's very known. I'm sure you know who it is. I met a few composers, local composers. I met many. I met a guy. He writes acts for Las Vegas, because I was supposed to open in Las Vegas Caesar's Palace. Today there is so many. At that time it was the biggest Caesar's Palace. And he wrote an act for me. And I insist that in this act I'd like to sing one song, the cantorial song. And he said, are you sure? Because people that come to Las Vegas to Caesar's Palace is not today's people. At that time, you know, I don't know if they will understand what you're singing. I said, I sing it because it's not a cantorial for me. It's a song. It's a belting song. It's something different. And it was a big success. And it was experience for me, because the first time I sang it on television in Belgium, and that program was Edith Piaf. You know who is Edith Piaf, right? We share a program, and when I sang the Chatzonish, the cantorial, she approached me, which is very rare. She's unbelievable goddess. She was so fragile, so fantastic. She came to me and she said, je ne comprends pas la chanson, mais je sais que c'est quelque chose de Dieu. Which means I didn't understand what is the song, but I know it's something about God, and I loved it. And since that, I put it on my program, because if she didn't understand the lyrics, she knew the emotion, the prayer, the gospel of the song. So everybody will hear it. And that's what happened. Every place in the world, I put it on my program. And it was a huge success.
When the Six-Day War broke out,
I was in Israel. I flew, oh my God, where I was. You know, dates, I'm very...
I had read somewhere that you were on tour with Harry Belafonte. Does that sound
Yeah,
right?
so it was in Florida. Yes, it was in Florida. Once I hear rumors, I'm there. I cancel things. Although many times I get penalties and whatever, but most of the time they understand, because most of the time the big owners of the places are Jews, so they understand the situations.
And why did you fly back? You flew back to sing, or you flew back
To sing, to join the army, to join the group. Once I'm there with my husband, because he's with me all the time. He's my manager. He put group together, and we were touring wherever we've been told to tour. You know, wherever they need us, we were there. So it was from probably Florida.
I mean, so far you've talked so passionately about both what it means for you to be an Israeli singer, on the one hand, and on the other hand, you've spoken very passionately about what it means to be an international singer.
Right.
And I'm just wondering if that was that ever like a tug of war between the two
Oh no.
for you? It's very
Look,
natural.
audience is audience. I sing because I love it. I sing because this was all my life. So if I sing in Israel, if I sing in Paris, and I saw the feedback of the audience, how happy they are, I'm part of it. Of course, as Israeli, I'm Israeli because this is my country and everything, but I didn't feel any different as far as reception of the people. I had, we went through so many things, but one of the saddest things was also when I was in Germany. You know that I recorded a song that was written for me, E Viva España. You know the song? E Viva España. And it was written for me, and it was big success, and I was invited by the Spanish government to Spain, and it sold a few millions, and I did very well. But I was invited to sing for the people in the Olympiada in München. And I will never forget that the group of Israeli asked my manager to sit close to me. Although there was all kind of, different kind of people. It was an evening of the shows of stars that made many famous songs from London, from Germany, from Belgium, all of them gathered and gave an evening in the theater of the Olympiada, what do you call it, facilities, yes. And it was very touching evening because I saw in front of me the Israeli athlete, and it was great. The next morning I was supposed to fly to New York. I flew to New York, and what did I see in the news? The tragedy that happened in Munich. I couldn't believe it. I said, it's a dream. That cannot be. I just was there. I was with my friend. They were sitting like a few steps from me. We sang together. Everything was so happy. And today, the gun. It was the worst nightmare in my life, one of them. And that's what happened in Germany. But one part that I did, among many songs that I recorded in Germany, but the one that really hit the world is Viva España.
Why do you think that song was so popular?
Excuse me?
Why do you think that song was so popular?
I think this song actually was written for the German European people that goes every summer to Spain, the tourist. So it just hit the spot, the right time, the right song, and I was lucky.
What did it feel like to be an Israeli woman recording in Germany a song that's a love song to Spain?
First of all, it's give honor for Israeli to travel, to be invited, but the government at that time was Franco. I think Franco was right. That was not so loving, hugging Israel, and I felt that if I've been invited, it's honor for me, and it's maybe for Israel too, because I represent Israel. Doesn't mean the song Viva España, it's a Spanish song. I recorded in Spain in Spanish, German in Spanish. But the fact that Israeli did that, the fact that I traveled the world or Europe presenting Viva España as an Israeli, proud Israeli, so it's a big thing, and it's a great feeling.
We heard the story that Franco didn't know you were from Israel. Is that true? And he invited
Exactly,
you.
exactly.
Can you tell us that story?
Some bird told you something, huh? Well, when I got, it was arranged for me when I come to Spain. The public relation will take me for interviews with the newspaper, television, to see the place and the whole, things. And I was prepared, but they didn't know that I am Israeli. So when I got there and they discovered that I am from Israel and Israeli, unfortunately all those interviews was cut. Television was cut. The only thing is that I had a good time in a hotel, seeing the scenery, being in Toledo, seeing what's going on in Spain as a tourist, but as a part of the, I don't know, I don't call it political. Actually, it's a political, because as far as I'm concerned, I have nothing to do with politics, but I was cut, and that was the end of the story. But as far as success of the songs is continue, just I was not welcomed by the newspaper in Spain. What can we do? C'est la vie.
Who would you, looking back on that period of your music, were there other Israeli artists, bands, or singers who you now think of, like, those are my contemporaries, those are my colleagues? Were there some other groups you could mention who you really thought were doing stuff that was important at that time?
As far as composers?
And singers and recording artists?
There is a few artists, singers that one thing, I don't like to mention name, because if I mention this name, why don't this name? But at that time, most of the entertainers I like. And as far as the music, I like the music of Zeira, Mark Lavry, Nahum Nardi, Moshe Wielenski, Emmanuel Zamir. There is quite a few of them,
Who would you say was the biggest influence on you as a singer?
I think my teacher that taught me how to sing, how to develop my voice to extremely range. And her name was Weinda, but she died a long time ago. At that time, she was like 70 years old. But she was from Austria, and she was really fantastic as far as develop my voice, my rhythm, my feeling. And she gave me a lot of courage. I work a lot also with Emmanuel Zamir songs, but not to develop the voice, just songs, repertoire, Mark Lavry. In America, I work, I feel today, with William Riley, that is one of the top coach as far as singer coach.
Was it a challenge for you as a woman at this time in Israel as a singer, or were there no barriers at all? Did anyone ever say, as a woman, you can only do this kind of thing?
Oh, no, they're going by song, by ability. What you can sing and what, they won't give me a song that a guy sings. But, at that time, I have to say, although I don't like to talk about, I talk so much about me, but at that time was no much of singers. I was at that time every place, radio, recording, dance, folk dancing. So the composer, most of them approach me uh, to sing their songs, and I was to choose which song I want, which song I feel like singing, which song I have connect as far as music and words and lyrics.
So could you tell us about the Olympics in Mexico?
Yes, prior the Olympic of Mexico, I was engaged few times to sing in the theater and a nightclub, on television. So I was well known at that time in Mexico. But when the Olympiada came to Mexico, they asked the Israeli consulate. No, it was a program, a part in the Olympiada that the culture section, which means concert in Bellas Artes, and they asked the consulate of Israel that they want some names of Israeli singers that will represent Israel in the Olympiada and the culture part of it. And they gave them all kind of names, and I was not included. Then by accident, a painter by the name of Raul Anguiano, that is part of the committee in Bellas Artes, told the people there, why don't you take Hanna Ahroni? She's, they said, she wants to come to do it? They said, of course. She will represent proudly Israel. And they called my manager. And contact my manager, and actually cut it. It's not good. I have to
It's
redo
okay.
it. Yeah, because
It's okay.
yeah.
It's
Don't
not-
worry about it.
No pressure, just talk
Yeah.
however you need.
Just continue.
I'm thinking exactly what happened, because I like to give it a sort of correct things. They asked my manager, of course, my manager was involved with it, and they agreed that I will represent Israel in the Olympiada. Now, the thing was that in Bellas Artes at that time, only opera singer sings, without a mic, because this is a prestige and opera place, opera theater. And they asked me if I'm willing to do it, but there is no mic that will be involved. And I'm singing all over the world with mic, this is my kind of singing. And I was very, very nervous, very sort of, I didn't know what to do. But I said I'm going to do it because this is the greatest honor that a country can give me, to represent the Cultural Olympic in Mexico from Israel. So the day came, I went to the theater for rehearsals, all nervous, and I asked one of the workers, the stage manager, just to sit there were like a few of them, one of them to sit on the middle of the theater and the other on the balcony. And I would like to sing a song that will be soft and tell me if you hear it without the mic. I did it. I sang a lullaby song, and they said, perfect. No problem at all. But I said, are you sure? Because once the theater with audience, the voice get lost. But they said, no, don't, you know, it will be okay. So when the evening come, I told my manager to anyway to put the mic aside in case something happened for emergency. And the music started, and I start the song of songs, the 4 octaves. And the audience just stand up and clap, and I thought maybe it's a dream, but that's what happened. And then I continued singing for 2 hours. And the next day or two, I saw my pictures around the city, my face, La Paz, with the dove on the top of it. I think I have it. You can see it in one of my albums. And it was the most prestige, unforgettable evening. And it's things that you have it in lifetime. This is my experience, this part of Mexico City. And of course, the part that I sang in the theater. At that time when I was in the theater, they didn't use, the Jewish people didn't come to this theater. Somehow it was like beneath their, whatever they call it. This theater belonged like to the people of Mexico. They come with the children, you know, in their bag, and like they call it the peasant people. But I said I would like, after being in Mexico, they received me so beautifully and they gave me all the honor and everything. I said, I would like to go to a theater. I don't care who sang or who didn't sing. I feel like being part of the people. And they said to me, be careful, because if they don't like you, they have a way to spit. You know, they have a way of spitting on the artist. Yeah, that's, I said, I don't care, I'm going there. And I sang, and it was unbelievable. People applaud me because what I did, I learned the mariachis, the songs of the people, with the music of the mariachi, and I sang with them. And they see that I did everything for their benefit, to sing with them, to feel like they do. And then I felt like singing the Chazunish there. And I met, this is the first time that I met Raúl Anguiano, the artist, he's the world famous artist. And he said, what you did for the peasant of Mexico, no one did. And all the honor. And since then, I used to go every year. I used to go twice or 3 times in Mexico, and I have a television show, La Hora de Hanna Ahroni. But I said I'm not going to live without being in a theater too. And that was like for years and years.
Can you just sing us a mariachi for a second?
Huh?
Do you remember any of the mariachi?
Mariachi, that's, you need the rhythm, you need the things, you know.
Was that television show, it was a series or it was a 1 hour
1 hour,
special?
1 hour special.
Wow. And your records were regularly sold in Mexico?
Oh yes, yes. In Mexico, all over the world, they sold it.
What did it feel like to be popular in Mexico, but in America to be popular but not as popular as in
Well, I tell you something, and I still don't believe, and you won't believe. When I was riding the cab You know, they are very religious, the Mexican people. And they have in their cabs the Maria. My picture was with the next to Maria, and I couldn't believe it. At that time, I was so popular. I said, "What? That's how popular I was."
Obviously, in the 1960s, not only in Mexico but all over the world, rock music and kind of counterculture and revolution were sweeping the globe. Did the music of that time, of rock and roll and psychedelic rock and roll in the 60s, did that get into your ears and start influencing the way that your sound? Did you end up being influenced by that at all?
No, I liked it, but I didn't think that I'm able to do this kind of music. But as far as liking the music, of course I did. I always heard it, and I always knew what's going on in the scene, but I never actually sang this kind of music, because it's not me.
So there's not a secret Hanna Ahroni rock and roll record?
No. But I did a lot of shows, in while I was in Los Angeles. I did the 1 hour show with Paul Anka, you know that, special 1 hour, and I sang with him duet. I sang with him, the duet was Fiddler on the Roof in country music, and I did my show. It was an hour, they call it a special hour or evening with Paul Anka. And I work with Johnny Mathis in Las Vegas and Caesar's Palace. And I have to remember names, my God.
Did you ever hear Johnny Mathis sing Col Nidre?
I heard him, yeah. He does a great job. But he doesn't sing them for many years. But he didn't do it in Las Vegas. He did different things. Frank Goshen, you know who's Frank Goshen, And
was it frustrating to you to be very popular in Mexico, but to do well in America, but never to be as popular as you were in other places?
no, I am a very realistic person. That's, I had, look, I was a success in America, in my corner of the world, and I was happy with I'm doing and the reception that I'm getting. I was in Las Vegas, and I had a great success, and I was every year there. So I'm not, I was not planning to be Barbara Streisand, which I admire, or I wish I was at that time as far as popularity. But after all, I'm Israeli or foreign artist in America at that time was very, very limited. It was very hard to get into the market.
The Jews were in the record industry. What do you think the barriers were?
Excuse me?
Jewish people
Yes.
run the record labels. What do you think the barriers were for you?
I think the market, because at my time, I remember a lot of stars from Europe, and I'm talking about very big stars, couldn't even fill the Carnegie Hall, because at that time, the ear of the American are very limited, unfortunately. Like if you go to Europe, Paris, London, each one of them, they have the sound, they know the language, they are with the music. The America, it was very far away, so their ear was a little bit difficult. So European artists at that time, today it's completely different for the last few years, but at that time I'm talking, it was very hard to a European person or the Israeli person to break into the American market. That's why when I was in Sullivan or Las Vegas, it was a big deal. The first Israeli, they call me the Israeli bombshell in Las Vegas, because at that time I like broke the barrier in a way. Today it's very common. A lot of European artists are big here too.
When did you refer the first record you recorded in the United States? Do you remember roughly when that was? It was A Taste of Hana, correct? That
No,
record?
Taste of Honey was
Later?
in Los Angeles. It was Israeli songs. I think it's called. Hmm. I don't remember the name, but it was done in New York.
Before A Taste of Hana.
Oh yes,
Yes.
Taste of Hannah was in Los Angeles. I worked with H.B. Barnum, and it was a lot of English songs at that time. You know, I developed more on the English language. A Taste of I mean, the Decca record was only Hebrew songs, folk songs, and it was done in New York. It was, I think, about the 60s, more or less. I really, years, it's passed by. I really don't know. I don't remember.
Was it a big deal for you to sing songs in English? Was that a big, did you have to do a lot of thinking about that, or did that seem like a natural next step?
Now it's natural.
Right.
At that time, I have to learn, like, you know, like other, although I knew a little bit English, but when you sing a song, it has to be more correctly pronounced and going with the music. And I work hard, and it's worth it. But it gives me the tools that today I'm a little bit better, you know, my English a little bit better. At that time it was okay, you know, it's always, there is a place for better.
Oh.
You talked about foreign artists coming over to America, and there were a number of Israelis who were coming over in a similar period, like Shoshana Damari and Gula Gil and Yaffa Yarkoni. Were you guys friends, or was there a healthy competition between you?
I didn't feel competition because my singing is a little bit different from Shoshana or Yaffa, because at that time, I'm talking not today, I was more on the international kind of songs, and the places that I was working, it's completely international, not the Jewish places or nightclubs or shows. It was pure Carnegie Hall, Lincoln Center, or I was in Los Angeles in I forgot even the name. You will cut it, of course. You will have to edit, because I forgot the names in Los Angeles. But here it was Lincoln Center, Carnegie Hall is the biggest. And in Los Angeles, also one of the biggest places. And nightclubs, Las Vegas. Every place was the top international, nothing to do with being a Jewish or in a Jewish place, like a Jewish nightclub. So it was different in this respect. But as far as competition, no competition as far as I'm concerned, and friendly, except that I was not in Israel. I was always, you know, in and out.
When did you first, or in what year roughly did you move to the United States permanently?
I didn't move permanently. I have a house in Israel.
Do you still go back and forth?
Oh yes, I'm going in 3 weeks. And I go there, I used to go very often with my daughter and my husband, spending their summers, holidays. So I always planned to go back there, but it's getting a little bit difficult because I have a daughter that lives in California, 2 beautiful grandchildren. It's not easy to be apart. But my heart is there. And every time I said that we're going to move, and then what we're going to do with my daughter, my grandchildren. That's life, that's a family. It's a part of lifehood.
Is there anyone in Israel right now who you think is carrying on your legacy as a singer? Is there anyone who you think is performing in the current moment who's part of the tradition that you helped establish?
I hope I know who he is, but I don't know who is the person. This one you have to ask there when you go there,
Sure.
because I really don't know.
I have two more kind of related questions. Do you know roughly how many albums you've recorded in total? over
How
your
many
career?
hours?
How many albums?
Albums. We'll have to count them soon because they are on the wall. But many, many, many of them, you know, at least I cannot know. It was at that time the small record, maybe 50, can be 50.
Is there one record that you look back on and you wish, boy, I wish I never would have recorded that one?
Oh, many of them. One thing you have to know, when I recorded, I always ask my manager, that luckily is my husband, hear it and tell me what's wrong. Because one thing, I couldn't hear me singing and I cannot see me on television. I have a problem. I always found that I could do better and why I didn't do better. And that's aggravates me. So I let the manager decide it's good. If it's good, I trust him because this is his business. If it's not good, I will do it again.
How about one record that you really, maybe not the most commercially successful one, but is there a record that emotionally for you is the most important thing you've recorded?
I think in Israel when I did שחורני ונבא, and I did ככה מרקדים בישראל with Mark Lavery. Those songs that I felt that I did right for the composer and for me. I felt very good when I did Viva España, the record of Taste of Honey, it's a very good one. So a few of them, but each one of them there is something that I could have done better. So there is no end to it, because I like to be perfect, and it's very hard to be perfect.
Why did you stop singing?
I stopped singing. It will sound cliche, but I don't care. It was a concert in Lincoln Center I will never forget. And after the concert, I told my manager, I cannot take it anymore. He said, what are you talking about? I said, that's it. I need something. I need a vacation because I cannot take anymore the stress, the responsibility, the nervousness. I was nervous wreck every concert, before and after, and so for year and year and year and year. And I felt that I cannot do any better anyway. I'm established and I need this relaxation for some time. So my manager said, okay, you take it. And I'd had at least a contract to complete. Passed 1 year, and I said, I like it. I don't think that I would like to go back, because I feel at peace, and when you feel at peace, live it this way. I did for years and years and years since I was 10 years old, and being on the road, traveling, television, interviews, nervousness. I need the peace to be with my child, my grandchildren. You know, I'm not young anymore. And day by day, it's very precious. My manager, which he is my husband, said, I understand you as a husband, but as a manager, I'm very, very upset. Because people still like you and wants you, and you see, I have telephone calls to go to Brazil, to go there. I said, I have to stop one day. And I stopped it, and I'm happy, and that's it. And this is the first interview that I'm doing with you. Now it's memory.
We feel very honored and we thank you for your time on this.
You know, I hope I cover some of my experience.
Well, maybe what we'd like to do is go down and look at some of the albums and photographs,
Right.
and if other memories and stories come up, that you could share those with us based on what we see.
Okay.
Can I ask you one question before we turn it off? How would you like to be remembered?
As simple as possible. I don't know. I don't like to remember me as a singer, as a diva. I'm a very simple person. I sang because I love to sing. I sang because I feel that I fulfill my dream, my happiness, and I let the people enjoy it. And that's the way I like to be remembered, nothing else. But I love singing until today. I am Hanna Ahroni, and this is my story.